So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to turn it over to our forum host, the amazing Jessica Pish, and she's the principal researcher and product strategist at Ximedica. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you, Junie, and thank you everyone for making this opportunity happen. I'm going to just jump right in. We have an agenda. We cover various different categories on a monthly basis in terms of new innovations that have come to market. And we have been doing this to help breed conversation and breed ideas and breed inspiration for projects that we work on internally, but also out there in your universe to kind of support and inspire. So there are a number of different categories that we cover each month. If there's a particular category you're interested in us watching and including, please send it my way. This has been an evolving list, refining and updating over the years. As you can see, COVID-19 is one that's kind of represented in terms of current circumstances. Hopefully that will go away in a few months, but it's something that we thought is worth incorporating into the categories that we watch. So let me jump right in with the first category, which is materials. There are always kind of some very complex materials and technologies that are coming out mainly from academia. This one is the idea of a potassium battery. Now, you probably have already heard about lithium batteries and how lithium batteries have, some very great capabilities, but potassium is actually a lot more cost effective than lithium and offers higher energy densities compared to lithium. So it can have much more effectiveness in terms of holding a charge in order to deliver energy to a battery. So lithium dendrites, which are the very little tiny bits of metal attached to an anode, and they cause spiky branches to build up over time and poke through the insulating material around that chemical. And that creates a short circuit which heats up, and that's what caused our decision to not allow certain cell phones on airplanes because there was a concern that it would explode. Well, potassium doesn't do this. And so this academic team have developed this idea of self-healing technique that cleans those dendrites off the anode of the batteries it's charged. And so potentially we could be starting to think about potassium batteries in our future. Next material, also a battery, is an M-gel battery with ultrasound charging. That has a completely different application. This comes out of a Saudi Arabian university. This is a tiny implantable device recharged through the skin using ultrasound. So there are many implants that only last for a certain amount of time. For example, think about a heart pacemaker. Either you have to wear an external battery or recharge it or replace it every kind of 10 years or so when that battery dies. Well, this is a very interesting technology because then it would allow for that implant to stay in place. This system is based on a biocompatible hydrogel that's able to stretch and flex with the body and conduct electricity. The hydrogel contains a polyvinyl alcohol with sheets of transition metal carbides, nitrides, and carbon nitrides that essentially receive energy through an electrical current that's subjected to pressure created by an ultrasound wave. And when that ultrasound wave puts pressure through those layers, it then forces electrical icons to flow and then generate energy for a battery for an implant. Concrete doesn't typically bend, but this Australian team have decided that this is something that they want to explore. They've figured out how to make bendable concrete with less energy and emissions. So the way concrete is made is essentially it's a glue that uses cement to bind together the different materials, and it requires high heat to produce. This different type of cement geopolymer composite uses industrial waste products like fly ash from coal and can be cured at room temperature. The result is a material that is 400 times more bendable than traditional concrete, but has the similar strength. So as we can start to think about what that's going to look like in terms of construction of buildings, potentially, but it also could be potentially very useful in places like California, where they are prone to earthquakes and need to be more flexible without weakening the material. Another type of material is Dilip surfacing. So for our team out in Minneapolis and other coal parks around the world, I will be kind of delighted to hear about this. So Dilip surfacing is, as you can see on the kind of subset of the image in the middle of the page there, is a different type of surfacing of an airplane foil. So as we know with ice, when it collects on the airplane, it increases drag and that decreases lift, and that impacts the ability for the airplane to fly safely, which is a problem. And typically to de-ice one of these airplanes, it takes 400 to 600 liters of antifreeze, which is not good for the environment and is also expensive. So this new type of Dilip surfacing is, the acronym stands for direct laser interference patterning, creates this kind of complex and meandering surface at a sub-micron level that essentially reduces the ability for ice to accumulate in it. As it gets to a certain layer, it starts to break off the ice because it just can't attach to that surface. And also, it also repels water, as you can see from the image on the right-hand side, which can make it even more aerodynamic up in the clouds. Right, moving into sensors, the low-heat chip is trying to replicate the human nose. The human nose is a very complex organ, has apparently under 450 different types of olfactory receptors, and they can be activated with different types of airborne odor molecules that allow us to distinguish between trillions of different scents. So the nose is a remarkable thing. So this group, which is a combination between Intel and Cornell, is working with artificial intelligence to mimic the way the brain analyzes and categorizes all of these different data sensor points. The chip has learned to, how to organize itself based using the equivalent of 130 neurons and 130 million synapses to process both supervised and unsupervised and reinforcement learning models. So they placed this chip in a wind tunnel with background interferences or other different smells. And the chip was able to identify 10 different odors despite that interference. So things like, oh, I'm blanking for a second. I think a chemical odor. And so it was able to detect both dangerous chemicals and explosives, thinking kind of carbon monoxide, drugs and contraband, and potentially even diseases. Like we've examined how dogs are able to detect cancer in previous tech forums. Well, potentially this chip could start to help us with diagnosing diseases as well. It could also be used to classify fine wines and perform quality control in factories as well. So it has an awful lot of interesting applications. Very interesting technology, this one. The next sensor device also as a diagnostic is a little bit more kind of basic, if you will, but it is designed to provide sensors on newborns and pregnant women. It's intended to be worn on the skin to track vital signs of these two very important types of people. They're particularly designing it to be used in developing countries. The sensor works as a pair. One is placed on the foot, as you can see on the image, and the other on the chest. And the idea of this particular technology is it's actually better than the wired solutions because it's able to monitor crying, movement, body orientation, as well as obviously heart sounds. There's a thin battery that acts as a power source. And the data is transmitted via radio waves. So by it being completely wireless, you have to communicate the data in a more innovative way. And that data is sent to a mobile device or potentially a nurse's station nearby. They've done a pilot with 42 babies, and they're planning to roll out a much, much larger scale trial with 15,000 pregnant women and 500 newborn babies. And they're looking to get FDA approval by the end of the year. They proved effectiveness. The next sensor device is called the ZIGA by Zito, which is a kind of fun name. And as you can see from the image here, it's intended to help with getting EEGs. And typically how that works is when you get an EEG, it's not that comfortable. It's pretty scary, particularly if you're a little kid. So this technology is intended to make the process much more comfortable and a lot less intimidating. There's no information. There's no wires that have to be placed on the head. It connects to the cloud and can be the data instantly uploads and can be remotely interpreted. The headset works by having 20 dry electrodes built in, so you don't need to shave the head in order to get a reading. And it uses active electrode technology and dynamic noise cancellation. They've gotten FDA approval for clinical use, and they raised a whole bunch of money to proceed to commercialization. Also in the context of head gear, this is a Notion brain computing by Noocity. It's a headset that incorporates sensors that detect brain activity and then can translate them into commands. So it can be used to monitor mental health, diagnose concussions, as well as enable someone who has mobility limitations, someone who's paralyzed, to control devices around them. It might be kind of also a way that actually works for someone to be able to lift a glass of water from across the room and really rig out a friend or family. But this is intended to be the first brain reading computer, and it's as powerful, they claim, as a MacBook Air. One on the back of the head, as you can see on the image on the right-hand side. It has 8 sensors that enable EEG readings and can image the brain at 250 times per second, so pretty powerful. They're looking to allow for third-party developers to create apps to run on what they call headwear. It's pretty expensive as a toy, but also very important for folks who have limited mobility. And they're accepting pre-orders for an early fall delivery. Another sensor device, there have been a lot of different things to attach to, fitness trackers to attach to your fitness gear. Well, this insole from Adidas and a Google partnership is designed specifically for soccer players to help them analyze their shots, their sprints, and their passes using a Jacquard tag. A Jacquard is a technology that we've talked about previously. The tag has an accelerometer, a gyroscope, a data collection electronics, and the stats can be synced to even a FIFA mobile app. So you can actually gamify your experience with other people. And you can establish physical challenges and milestones for yourself and digital rewards for your team as you reach those milestones. One example of a milestone that they built into this technology is the master finisher. So if you achieve 40 powerful shots in a real game in the penalty area, that achieves a certain amount of digital rewards. There's $35 for one of these tags that works for a pair of sneakers. All right, moving into robotics. Dave Copeland, who's one of our design or industrial design directors in Minnesota, sent me this link, and I always look for contributions. So if you think something is really worth putting into the tech forum, send it my way. My email address is at the end of this presentation. So Motion2Vec, by a collaboration between Intel and UC Berkeley, is a deep learning robotic system that's designed to be able to watch surgical videos, publicly available surgical videos performed by clinicians, and analyze those medics' movements just from watching the videos when they're suturing, for example, understanding the needle insertion, extraction, and the handoff, and then being able to mimic them just from watching the video. And after watching 78 of these videos, the system was able to perform the tasks of those collected videos with an 85% accuracy level and a 0.94 centimeter error in the targeting accuracy. Of course, we want those sutures to be really precise, so hopefully over time they can get that margin of error down. But the project team anticipates this system could be used to help augment a surgery, particularly helping with suturing, and evolve to support other more mundane tasks like wound debridement, which if you've ever watched that is a pretty nasty looking process of a procedure, but very interesting to know that this is coming for those people who are planning surgeries and are thinking that they may have a robot. Well, the robot can do more things now. Another surgical robotic system is the Genesis RMN system. It's got an FDA approval from Stereotaxy. This is a navigation system that helps with the delivery of magnetic ablation catheters to address cardiac arrhythmias. So the system is able to access all chambers of the heart and coronary vascular and is used and can also be used for neuro and peripheral vasculature as well. So the tech allows for the very precise control of a catheter tip as it's guided to the particular site within the heart or in the blood vessel. The system is able to be 70 to 80% faster than its predicate, and is even smaller than the previous system. All right, this is kind of in the other category, less medical, but the MatNet station is a partnership between MatNet and UPS, our favorite delivery services. They have developed a location where medical staff can drop off and receive lab samples from other locations that have been delivered by drone. The roof of the device opens up, as you can see on the right-hand side, which is a head-down view that allows the delivery drone to land and also to take off. The station enables a drone battery to be swapped out and the lab sample that its payload essentially taken off of the drone. The lab who's receiving that sample gets an alert, and the sample is presented for the testing and the various different lab work that would happen. The station can hold up to 1 drone at a time, but 4 packages at once. So if you can get that drone shipped back out or back to the sender, another drone can take its place and drop off a package. And each of those lab samples, are kept at controlled temperatures, and the surface is available to hospitals if they're willing to make the space in front of their lab area with an annual subscription. They're in pilot testing currently. Another robotic is called the Hull Skater by Semcon and Jotun, which are Swedish companies that have partnered. If you have studied cargo ships at all, you will know that they over time build up a biofilm of various different things that attach to the sides and the hull of the ship. And as just like we saw with the de-icing surface technology previously, as those layers build up, they cause drag, and that adds to fuel consumption, slows down the boat. And of course, we want to save the environment, of course. So when a shipper stops at port for loading, this hull skater can be attached to the boat and travel across the whole of the hull, cleaning it with motorized brushes. And in doing so, the robot can cut 22,000 metric tons of CO2 emissions, which is 12.5% of the total emissions of that boat, which is equivalent to 24 million pounds of coal. So it might be worth doing. Another benefit of this technology is that it prevents the spread of invasive aquatic species from port to port, which is something that particularly Chicago, where I'm based, has had an issue with some of the fish that have come from Asia and taken over the ecosystems in the Michigan River or Chicago River. So the next robotic is the RSGS system by Space Logistics and DARPA, the defense venture capitalist, if you will. So this technology is being developed to service and extend the useful life of orbital satellites in space, and it is a robot. It's going to be used by the robotics servicing of geosynchronous satellites, which is what the RSGS acronym stands for, to develop dexterous services that can be operated by private companies controlling the system. The idea is that the robot will have manipulator arms and a variety of interchangeable tools, cameras, sensors, software, and avionics. And they will also provide an spacecraft bus, launch and orbital operational services in the future. Robots in space. Okay, moving into diagnostics, the Cosmos by Econoos is an ultrasound AI-based software system that helps enable diagnostic imaging and make clinical decisions at patient bedside. We've seen a number of these in the past couple of years as ultrasounds become more and more portable. So this device particularly weighs 8 ounces, so pretty light, and has EEG and digital asculation functions, the ability to listen just like you would with a stethoscope. It connects to a tablet that runs the software and uses the ultrasound images to assess for heart and lung function. The company is focused on analyzing systolic heart function parameters and cardiothoracic abnormalities, which in particular require quite a lot of expertise and experience to interpret, and so enabling folks who have lesser experience to better diagnose more quickly and more efficiently. So they've gotten CE mark approval to go commercial in Europe. This next diagnostic, also in the context of imaging, is called the Lightsheet 7 by Zeiss, which is a very particular specialized camera company. This is a light sheet fluoroscopy fluorescence microscopy platform that assists in the observation of large living samples with subcellular resolution over extended periods of time without, this is a mouthful, phototoxicity problems interfering with the outcome. And so ultimately, in layman's terms, what that means is that his ability to look at an organ with a high level of granularity and fidelity is illuminating micro-thin slices with a laser source perpendicular to the direction of observation. So kind of like how you see when you look at an MRI image, it's a similar way. It gives you slices of information in terms of its imaging. And you can, through this platform, alter the exact angle of the light to address for particularly shadow problems. And you can image also entire organs, for example, like a mouse brain in a 40-minute time period using this technology. So really, truly better understanding organs in place. Another diagnostic also in the imaging world is the MicroCT Imager from Nanyang Technological University. I believe they're in South Korea. This is a prototype handheld that can image tissue at a very decent resolution with wavelengths at 709 to 950 nanometers. They're using wavelengths, essentially using near infrared light that can penetrate a few millimeters below the skin to define the cells underneath that skin. So I could see this being used particularly for skin cancer as an example to detect and track for the progress of a particular lesion. So this device emits an infrared light and that light bounces data back from the tissue. And an algorithm is able to convert that data into a 3D colorized representation of the cells that are being imaged. It works in real time, and so you can generate a very good, clear, high-res image, and then that can be analyzed, but even potentially by a non-pathologist physician. So you could anticipate this being used in a doctor's office as part of providing patient care. Another diagnostic called the Clot Chip by ZIGA is a handheld point of care device that can measure a patient's bleeding risk profile from a single drop of blood in 15 minutes. It can be used to estimate the bleeding risk using dielectric spectroscopy to measure the impedance of a blood sample when it's exposed to essentially an electric field. The coagulation markers can be discerned in real time, which is important for particularly trauma patients and being able to figure out, whether you need to give them a blood thinning or whether they're going to essentially bleed out as a result, or alternatively hemophiliacs and people on anticoagulants, and be able to determine whether you need, what kind of prescription level you can give them. They've received FDA breakthrough designation, which is a pretty tall task, and so we should expect to see this in the market pretty soon, particularly in emergency departments. Graphial is a company with a product of the same name coming out of France. This is a wound care material that has a polymer film that has flexible electronics in it that include graphene electrodes that are able to have direct contact with the wound. And as a result of that, electronics is able to detect the chemistry of a wound, such as a pH rise as a result of an infection. And as a result, that conductivity of those graphene electrodes change. This data can be sent to an app on a smartphone or a tablet nearby, and that can enable analysis to happen. So a clinician can then see in real time online updates of the wound condition without having to remove the bandage, and can gauge whether the wound is healing on track or not. Another diagnostic, also a sensor, is called the Light Transmittance Strain Sensor by KAIST Institute of Technology in South Korea. This is a new approach to developing a strain sensor. It's detecting optical transmittance of material as it's bent out of shape. The material itself is a platinum catalyzed silicon. It's translucent, so you can see through it, and has a forest of carbon nanotubes throughout. As the material is bent, tiny cracks run through, and then those tiny cracks are able to transmit light. And when you shine a light beam through it, you can then detect how well that light is passing through, and then that provides the sensor capability. So when they've tested this, this technology on humans, the device can accurately detect the bending of a finger, the moving of even muscles around the mouth while talking. So potentially we might be able to see this in clothing at some point in the future as part of new fitness trackers and or helping with, for example, rehabilitation of patients as they are seeking to do stretching exercises as an example. This device is a diagnostic and a therapy at the same time. It's called the dual patch cardioverterdefibrillator by Element Science. And if you track cardiac issues, you will know that cardiac deaths kill a lot of people on an annual basis. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation or defibrillation is only effective if you can get there quick. And because defibrillators are not very common outside in the real world, someone who has a high risk of this would really benefit from this device. It's low profile, it's discrete, personal defibrillator that detects and then can able to treat a arrhythmia. It's been marketed to at-home patients with an elevated cardiac risk, and the wearable provides continuous protection for all daily activities, including showering and sleeping. So when you think about the adhesiveness of that patch underneath the device, it's got to be pretty sharp and smart. They raised quite a bit of money for their clinical trials that they're moving into. Another diagnostic called the VTrack by Dinocardia is able to continuously measure non-invasively systolic and diagnostic blood pressure. And it's using an optomechanical sensor that captures the spatio-temporal force information in real time. It has specific optical signatures that correspond to the systolic and diagnostic blood pressure markings from a patient. They are able to integrate with existing hospital monitoring systems, and the company plans to begin inpatient clinical trials this month. This one almost made it to my what are they thinking category, but Stanford University has been exploring the idea of diagnostics in our toilets. This device scans urine and stool samples for signs of disease. The tech is designed to be retrofitted to a toilet, kind of like those bidet mounted attachments that you may have come across. This device includes a camera that captures the video of urine and feces as it's passing through the toilet, and the video is able to process and analyze the information using algorithms to assess for the physical characteristics of the samples, such as flow rate, stream time, and volume. A fingerprint scanner on the flush lever, which is pretty sharp, enables the device to be able to attribute a particular sample and the results to an individual patient, particularly if various different people share the same bathroom. And it also deploys a urinalysis strip to scan samples for molecular features and track a variety of different biomarkers, including white blood cell count and protein levels. They've done a study with 21 subjects, and they anticipate including an app in the future that will be able to send the data to a doctor when things are looking awry. They've also, in this article, they get into more detail about analyzing people's biomarkers for other indications, but I won't get into that because it's just not a suitable audience. Anyhow, next therapy is SX1 micro knife by Sonic. Sorry, I spelled that wrong. This device enables a minimally invasive approach to enable carpal tunnel release surgery to be performed. Currently, this type of procedure is not an in-office procedure. It's done under general anesthesia, and it takes a long time to recover to address carpal tunnel syndrome. So what this device does, it transects the transverse carpal ligament and releases the pressure on the median nerve, which is what causes people pain. It uses a single 4 to 5 millimeters incision, and it uses ultrasound guidance. So it could be a very good alternative to open surgery. The product claims a 5 times faster pain relief, 5 times faster recovery, and significantly less use of pain meds than the open surgery option commercially available today. And it was generated by 2 in-office doctors who were fed up with having to go to surgery. The next therapy device is called the Rhine Air Stylus by Erin Medical. This is designed to be a non-surgical treatment for chronic rhinitis, so those people who suffer from real chronic allergies. This provides long-lasting relief by directly disrupting the body signals at the posterior nasal nerve, which you can see on the image on the right-hand side. is the kind of the back of the nose cavity. And these particular nerves are what cause our runny noses and our coughs and our congestion when we are subjected to allergy sources. The procedure is performed under local anesthesia in an ear, nose, and throat physician's office with no incisions and relatively minimal discomfort. I kind of like those swabs that they're using for COVID. The next product is the FanGenex system by a company of pretty much the same name. This is a neurological orthogonal dysphagia solution. So this particular condition is one where the nerves that control the swallowing muscles are damaged, potentially as a result of a stroke or other neurological condition. And what this device is actually designed to do is help the patient restore their swallowing control using electrical stimulation to the pharynx area, which is the organ that controls the swallowing control center in our brains. The device uses a touchscreen base and delivers and records the electrical stimulation. And as there is a catheter with 2 electrodes that deliver the electrical pulses, a typical regimen using this system would be 10 minutes each day for up to 3 days, potentially done at home by a patient. They've received FDA breakthrough designation for this device. All right, moving into drug delivery. This is a vaccine strip that we can put on our tongue and potentially get a vaccine in a new delivery method. So it's a peelable lightweight film that preserves the biologics without having it to be needed to be refrigerated, which can make a big difference for developing worlds, of course, and can also withstand extreme temperature changes. The technology has demonstrated a proof of concept for both Ebola and H1N1. Maybe it could come for COVID at some point in the future as well, as we all hate getting vaccines by needle. So the biologic is actually suspended and sealed within a film matrix, and then that matrix can be released in a precision controlled way. The company I'm not even going to try and pronounce it, maybe they need to change their name. The North Carolina startup has licensed the technology with plans to develop it for applications that not only include vaccines, but also could include anti-infectives, chemotherapy agents, as well as gene therapy products. So it's coming out of academia, so it's probably going to take them a while, but interesting development nonetheless. Another drug delivery has a little bit of a different application. It's called a micro drug mat. One of our directors of our sectors at Ximedica, Sheila, flagged this one for us. It comes out of a German academia team. So these mats are made from biodegradable fibers that are only a few microns thick and have the ability to deliver drugs to the brain in particular. So when we think about a particular drug called nimodipine, what this drug does is prevent nerve cells from dying after brain surgery. And it's been shown, this particular drug, to successfully treat for cerebral hemorrhages in particular. It's really that based on the parameters of the drug, it's really only best effective when it's administered locally, because it degrades quickly and has undesirable side effects to the body if it's administered by an IV. So its best way is to deliver it through some form of micromat. So this particular team have developed a way to incorporate the drug into this biodegradable polymer and then electrically spin it to form these mats that are only 1 to 2 micrometers thick and then can be placed on the brain after a surgery to deliver the drug at the local site. Moving into disability, both thinking about eye vision impairment as well as hearing. In a later technology, the CBoost is designed to prevent central vision loss, particularly for those with, for example, macular degeneration. The device comes in the form of a prescription glasses that include a lightweight electronic screen mounted to a lens. The screen displays a magnified and brighter video image of what is in front of the user. And it also incorporates a contrast enhancement and adjustable magnification that allows the user to interact naturally with someone who is next to them. They've done a production run of 150 prototypes and they've tested it on that many people. They're trying to move into Gen 2. I think they should actually partner with Google Glass for the next version of their generation, because it seems like there's an awful lot of borrowed technology platform that they could repurpose there. Staying in the eye category, this hemispherical retina artificial eye, David Eddy, one of our PMs from Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, David Eddy found this one for us. This is an artificial eye that is pretty amazing if you think about what's involved in a natural eye and then trying to translate it into a functional prototype. This uses nanometer scale light sensors in a hemispherical retina form factor. So it's kind of similar to our typical eyeball. And it's able to mimic the photoreceptor cells in a human retina. The dome shape of the retina actually naturally reduces the spread of light that passes through a human eye's lens. And this is able to, excuse me, sharpen the focus. The artificial eye prototype has high density array of photosensors that are formed inside the pores of a membrane of aluminum oxide. And then these flexible wires, which are made of liquid metal, are sealed in these soft rubber tubes. And then they transmit the signals from the photoreceptors to an external circuit board. And the result is a design that can see a 100-degree field of view. A human eye can see about 130 degrees. And it has the ability to detect a range of light intensities to interpret images in a pretty high resolution. So obviously they've got quite a way to go in terms of making this be a bionic eye for an implant, but pretty amazing technology when you think about what's been involved in getting to this point, just what we're seeing in the image in the article that's here. Right, moving into hearing, so that MicroCT by Fraunhofer Institute, a German university, is trying to address the cocktail party effect for those people with hearing aids, where when you're listening to a lot of people in a room, it's very hard to, with your hearing aid, you have to single out one particular speaker who may be right in front of you. So this uses mobile EEG brain stimulation for better hearing, which is what the MicroCT stands for, to incorporate EEG into analyzing electrical activity of the wearer's brain to determine what they're actually trying to listen to and where they're trying to focus their attention. There's a directional microphone called a beamformer that responds by focusing itself in the same direction as where the brain is trying to listen to, while filtering out noises from other directions. And at the same time as that's all happening, the auditory cortex of the brain is also stimulated with transcranial electrical stimulation to improve the intelligibility of the sound that the brain's able to interpret. So they prototyped, tested this technology in non-deaf volunteers, and they're going to now moving into a smaller version of the device, potentially integrated into just a hearing aid, and then take that into clinical trials with people with hearing loss. All right, moving into COVID, there's a number of different very interesting technologies here. So this first one is called a social distancing sensor, developed by a Singaporean company, Dioptron. This is a 3D printed sensor that alerts people around the person who's wearing a sensor that they're not maintaining social distance, or that there are more than 10 people who have gathered, which in Singapore is still the desirable mandate of less than 10 people in a confined area. And so those individuals then get alerted that they are not in compliance. This one is a little bit more humorous, developed by an inventor with a crazy name, Stupot McDoodle Pip. God bless him, he's a big YouTuber apparently. He's developed a social distancing laser hat, as you can see on the image on the right-hand side, basically defines a very clear 2-meter radius around him to communicate to others that you are not within the right zone. The inventor offers a free video tutorial of how to make this device from commercially available parts. Walking around with this helmet on with this durangle on the head may feel pretty weird, but for those people who really do care about social distancing, may be worth putting together in your free time in your summer months. Another COVID is the MoTouch Bracelet. I do not want this for my birthday present or for Christmas because it will drive me mad, I know, because I touch my face a lot. But this is a wearable designed to help you monitor how many times you touch your face. And it alerts you and to try and kind of wean you off of this kind of bad behavior to essentially prevent COVID-19. It was originally developed, interestingly enough, to help patients with a particular disorder that I'm not going to pronounce, that compels them to pull out their hair. And so as a way to kind of train a new behavior. So this device comes with an accelerometer that senses hand movements 10 times a second, and it buzzes when you touch or even come close to touching any area of your face. And an app tracks your progress, hopefully improvements over time, available for $50, which seems cheap. I kind of think it could be incorporated into one of these things already, but, and of course it has to be, you have to wear one in each wrist, which, deplays down all the other jewelry you might wear, or even having a watch on your wrist, but interesting technology nonetheless, particularly in terms of COVID. The next device for COVID is a vitamin C sensor patch. So, sensor patches have been out for many, many years now, but this new device is coming out of UCSD in San Diego, is a way to detect and track vitamin C levels, so a particular biomarker that's important for healthy recovery, particularly for the COVID disease. And it does so by analyzing sweat. So vitamin C is particularly important for supporting the immune system, which is why when we have a cold, we chuck down vitamin C tablets. It also helps with producing collagen, which is also good for keeping our youthful faces, and also, of course, absorption of iron. So it's also a valuable resource or a vitamin to be taken for other acute respiratory diseases. So the circuitry on this adhesive patch generates an electrical circuit when the ascorbic oxidase enzyme in the patch encounters vitamin C from sweat, and then that alerts the user that maybe they should take on more vitamin C in their lives. The next device also has a patch called the BioButton. BioButton is about the size of a quarter and is intended to be single use. It tracks a person's temperature, respiration and heart rate, body position and sleep temperature for a continuous 90 days. So designed to be worn for a 90-day period. Also thinking about some of the adhesion benefits of that patch design. So the company proposes it can be used to spot for early signs of COVID and monitor those who've already infected. They're also proposing it could be worn by employees looking to return back to work. The device shares readings with a centralized dashboard that is HIPAA compliant, and algorithms are able to spot unusual events or trends, and they've got an FDA approval for the marketing of this. Also in the context of finding people with fever, you would expect this to come from China. The Quanchai technologies have developed this helmet, presumably worn by enforcement folks, is able to automatically pinpoint people who have a fever by measuring temperature from hundreds of people in a crowd within 3 to 5 minutes in less than 2 minutes. And the helmet emits a visual and audio alert once it identifies someone with an elevated reading, presumably to allow that task force staff member to go and pull that individual out of the crowd and get them into a hospital or quarantine. Very similar device also coming out of China. You can start to see a lot of these kind of inventions in relation to COVID. From that country. T1 glasses do a very similar thing. Thermal glasses are using an infrared sensor and a camera and augmented reality features to detect a temperature of up to 200 people in 2 minutes from as far away as 3 minutes. Obviously, this is an important issue in China. Ohio State University has developed, or is developing, a COVID breathalyzer, taking breath samples that can have key biomarkers for COVID that include the presence particularly of nitric oxide, and produce a result of positive or negative in 15 seconds. So much quicker response than some of the current COVID testing that's out there. This technology has evolved from sensors that have been previously used for monitoring gases from automotive exhaust. Talk about repurposing of a technology. So this project has received a grant for $200K to support further efforts to build this out as a COVID commercial application. We've featured previous more other innovative masks, but of course this one is particularly relevant in terms of it having a transparent feature. Transparency is important in terms of masks, not only to improve visibility, but to help healthcare providers communicate more naturally with patients, to help them be more protected. But also when you see a clinician smiling, it can help reduce and de-escalate nervousness, fear, anxiety, particularly in children in very stressful situations. It's a pretty good price, I think, at a retail point of $60 for 24. Of course, that is more expensive than current face masks. And they're waiting to get FDA approval from the FDA. And that was as of, I believe, end of April. So moving into more therapy devices in relation to COVID, the next series of slides show a progression of sophistication. This one is pretty low fidelity, as you can see. UCLA is one of the academic teams that are trying to pursue a easy to make ventilator. They were able to develop this and assemble it in 1 week and build it from off-the-shelf parts from Home Depot. I'm sure Home Depot appreciated the partnership. The device is able to control respiratory rate and tidal volume, along with a number of other features. And the team is creatively seeking Indiegogo funding to support further development and testing. Given some of the other initiatives that are out there, they may not be that successful given the presentation of their marketing, but who knows? Who knows? So keep track of that one. The next ventilator innovation comes from Auburn University, and they've named their product the Reinvent. They've developed a way to convert a CPAP machine into a functional ventilator, and it can be assembled in 4 hours with $700 worth of parts, presumably not from Home Depot, and that's in comparison to a standard ventilator that can cost up to $25,000. So there's definitely a value-based proposition of this team. This next product, the Spectra Up Tier apheresis system by Terumo, is intended to lower the levels of cytokines and other proteins in the blood that promote inflammation to help reduce the impact of an infection, particularly for COVID patients. And it's essentially a new blood purification indication. Is going to help with emergency access for COVID ICU patients in particular. And they've got an emergency use authorization for their marketing. Also in the context of prevention, we featured, I think, one of these types of technologies in last month's forum, but the idea of Nano Vapors being able to distribute and settle on a surface through the use of a spray to apply microbial nanoparticles to surface and objects that can withstand multiple days of exposure. It uses a biodegradable coating that continues to protect the surface by killing bacteria, fungi, mold, viruses, you name it, for an extended time. And they claim up to a 70-day duration at a 99.8% reduction in microbial count, even on high-touch surfaces like doorknobs. Pretty remarkable. Also in terms of other types of surfaces, Wheels, which is a company that offers a bike sharing program in various different cities, I think New York and London. This bike sharing company has made its bikes available, for example, particularly for free for healthcare providers, but they introduced a new self-cleaning nanoseptic handlebar and brake lever surface. The technology is powered by light and uses mineral nanocrystals to create an oxidation reaction on that surface that's stronger than bleach to clean it between users. Two other technologies here, the Revan dashcam system. We always typically have a few bikers and riders in our group, so I always like to give them a shout out for new technologies. This one is the RevCam dashcam system. It's designed for motorcyclists and gives them a heads-up display of their blind spots. A low-profile dual camera module is mounted onto any camera, any helmet, and can continuously record 143-degree views of both the road in front and behind the reader. There's a lithium battery or maybe a potassium battery in the future for 12-hour use, and the Revan communicates with the rider through a smartphone and handlebar mounted remote, as you can see on the image on the middle bottom of the screen, for just under $1,000 through a Kickstarter campaign. Those blind spots. The FarmByBase, which is an Australian company, is promoting the idea of indoor farming. This particular product has 5 feet of growing surface in a circular frame that looks kind of like a big fan. You can buy pre-seeded pods of various different plants like lettuce and kale and chives, and those get slotted into the housing. The user fills a tank with water and plant feed, and then plugs the system into a power outlet, and then the housing slowly turns around with a LED lighting to promote growth of those plants. You can monitor the progress and set up via an app if you are so inclined to determine and set sunrise and sunset. And the system uses 95% less water than soil-based crops. So if you want fresh vegetables at your kitchen table, this might be a product for you for $440 through Indiegogo campaign for an October delivery. That's it for the moment. Ximedica keeps an archive of all of our past tech forums, and of course it's available to access via NIMEC and Venture Cafe as well. Our next tech forum, as Tony mentioned, is on the 16th of July. If you have any follow-up questions or inquiries, please send them our way.